$50,000 is the amount of money that a credit union that I used to be a part of accidentally wired me to my bank account when I was in my 20s. I can go ahead and skip to the good part, which is I didn't go to jail and I didn't do anything wrong. And I was able to keep the money, every penny. So one day I was in my bedroom and I was going through the mail. I opened the mail and I was wiring money already, right? Because I knew I was going to be living there. And so we were kind of using that account for things that we were going to be doing together once I moved from Alabama to St. Louis. And while I'm there, I'm sitting in my room and I open up this mail and it was like wire confirmation. Back then they weren't sending emails. So they was like wire confirmation. And I was like, for 49,000, whatever it was, 700 something dollars. And I stood there and I was frozen. I was like, oh my God, somebody is trying to set me up. I started running through my mind, like everyone who it could possibly be that would send me this money. And I was like, I had a friend that really was gambling at the time. I was like, did she wire this money to me? I was also working at this apartment complex as a manager, and the manager was kind of shady. So I'm like, is he trying to hide money and send it to me? I literally called him. I was just like, hey, how you doing? Did you send me any money to my bank account? And they're like, no. So then I immediately, I called the bank and I was like, hey, the credit union rather. I was like, hey, I got a wire notification, which means that the money had been sitting there. By the time the mail comes, that you got the notification, it's been sitting there for at least a couple of days, at least 2 or 3 days. Things weren't as sophisticated then as they are now, so I didn't know it until I got the letter. And I was like, now at most, I might have had $1,500 of my own money in that bank account, I didn't have a lot of money at all at that time. And so I called them, and they were like, no, ma'am. It says, is this your account number? Is this your name? Da-da-da-da. And I was like, so the credit union wired the money to the other bank, but it was a mistake. And so, but they were insisting that there was no mistake. So I'm like, I'm trying to tell y'all, I'm like, well, who sent it? Like, where did it come from? And they steadily trying to tell me. So then I went and I saw a lawyer. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this money? What are my rights? What is the law? And the lawyer told me exactly to do this. He said, report it again, document everything, don't touch any of the money for 30 days. And he told me to post it somewhere public. So I don't know if it was a newspaper or something to that effect. And he said, if they don't claim it, then it's yours. And that's exactly what happened. The bank refused to admit that they made a mistake. So this person says, you must be slow to think you can convince me that you didn't break the law. You knew the money wasn't you. Of course I knew it, which is why I called the bank twice and hired a lawyer. I tried to give the money back. What part of that did you not hear? I called the bank when I got it and said, this is not my money. They said, yes, it is. I said, no, it's not. And I said, well, what's your policy, bank? When a bank error happens, they said we have 10 days to investigate. That's what they said, which is why there's no criminal charges. I'm saying this on a public platform. I bought 2 houses with that money. So I didn't break the law. And yeah, I did get lucky. Good for me. That's how my life has been. Pretty fucking lucky. Get you some. Great question. This is part 3 of what happened with the $50,000 that a bank accidentally wired me when I was in my 20s. They didn't have any grounds because they didn't follow their own policy on bank errors. So every bank and financial institution has their own policy and procedures of what happens when there is a bank error that is reported. So when they accidentally sent me this money, I called them the same day and told them that they had made a mistake, and they told me they didn't. And so I hung up the phone. I saw a lawyer. The lawyer told me to call him back and ask them what their policy was on bank errors and to tell them that they had made a bank error. And so I did. And I called them back. I said, and I have all this documented, all the phone calls, the letter, everything. And I still have it because I'm a paper hoarder. And this was how was I when this happened? I don't know. I can't do math that fast. But a long time ago, at least 17 years ago. I'm 47. So they didn't have any grounds. So And the lawyer told me don't spend the money for 30 days, which I didn't. I didn't spend the money. I called them back, documented it. They have me calling in documented. The calls are recorded. They have their people saying that, I mean, like, it's their rules. And it was just amateur hour at the bank. Like, whoever was handling that just didn't handle it. So it's just like when there's money unclaimed. Like, let's say you ride in a cab, you find a briefcase full of money, you report it, no one claims it, and wherever you are, there is some law that says you have to do this, this, and this, and then after so much time passes, then it's your money. And that's basically what happened. So then months and months and months and months and months later, a lawyer called me at my job and said that the bank wanted their money back. But what the lawyer didn't realize was that, number one, he didn't say he was representing them. He said that he was a friend of the bank, which means that that was a favor phone call. And I told him that I was within my rights to keep the money because I reported it and they did not follow their own policy. So I don't have to get the money back. Like, that was them. Nope, it wasn't my money. Nope, none of my friends sent me the money. Nobody I know sent me the money. The bank entered the wrong account number when they were doing a wire transfer for someone else. So when I called and reported it, they didn't admit that. They just was like, no, that's yours. And after they had did whatever they did. And so after 30 days, I started spending the money because then after 30 days, the money belonged to me. That's why they had no grounds. And when they called me, the reason why they didn't send the police was because it wasn't a criminal act. Then they wanted to make it a civil situation because they fucked up. What did I do with the $50,000 that the bank accidentally wired me into my bank account? Let's talk about it. In short, I spent it, but here's what I bought. I bought a house. I bought a second house that we flipped and made $22,000 on. Me and the guy that I was dating at the time. I bought a car and we lived on it. And I lived off that money. I mean, I was working full time. I was making at that time, I think I was making $31,000 a year. I was working at this place called Beyond Housing in St. Louis. And it took me about a year and a half to spend all the money. And they did call for the money back. They did call after a while. And they asked me to return the money. But they didn't have any grounds. I could share a whole different video on that.